Before we even start this, and to spoil the video a bit, DSP is reading a comment he received on a video. We went looking on every video DSP uploaded in the last few weeks and could not find it. So to be objective about this, it's entirely plausible that somebody did post this and DSP just let it hang in limbo. However, given DSP's track record of fans behind the scenes said and the silent majority, I think it's fair that we assume DSP wrote this on his underwear and crayon. Anyway.
I'm just going to read the comment verbatim, and I'm very curious to hear everyone's thoughts on it. So here's the comment left on my Alone in the Dark video where we were talking about this, okay? Here it is. The majority of the detractors don't hate you for any real reason. They just monetize their videos.
That's really fucked up.
Duty made videos about Wings of Redemption before he ever came to you. And he was bullied out by the other Wings detractors. So he stopped and started making them about you. It's literally just for money for most of these big ones, and YouTube stopped them. If YouTube had stopped them from monetizing this crap, they would go do something else.
Well, this just started off on a very regarded note, considering that this absolute dent is literally claiming that detractors are doing it for the money. And not just for the money, mind you, but the YouTube money, no less. You know, that YouTube money that DSP says doesn't even exist because ad revenue is so low all the time nowadays? You know, that money that DSP complains is so low because YouTube are a bunch of book smart morons that don't know how to run their business? This is dumb on so many levels, but mainly because even despite the fact that detractors pull in several times more views than DSP on most of their videos, it's still around the thousands, which means that ad revenue for them is literal pennies. Well, maybe not pennies, but you get what I mean. That doesn't really sound like a lot of monetary incentive to do this kind of shit, does it? Besides, even if YouTube demonetized the detractors, they could still get by via tips and donations. You know, just like Phil does.
I'd also mention that the vast majority of detractors don't even make that much money. Who are the big people nowadays? I know Outsider is pretty big in the this is how you don't play scene, but he's not making a lot of money. Streamers like Piece of Peace, Shoutout Pops, do get some money, but it's nothing they'd be paying their bills with. The only person I can really think of that can pull big money is Tevin. However, most of the times I see Tevin with a lot of money coming through, it's for a charity fundraiser. Big ups to him for giving back to the people in need, by the way. If we wanted to make money, we wouldn't be focusing on a defunct streamer like Phil. We'd be going after people who have household names or at least a wide amount of appeal. I'm sure popular people like Ninja have a lot of scummy shit that they do. I've seen the guy go off on his fans, but the fact of the matter is I just don't give a shit what Ninja does. However, I do care about the way Phil uses people. Ninja going off on his fans is one thing. Phil grooming a 17-year-old girl is a whole different matter.
How this dent missed the bus on the regular DSP quip that any support is appreciated but tips helping the most is beyond me. But this is a DSP dent we're talking about. Well, at least I hope it is, otherwise we'd need to add bad writing to Phil's ever-growing list of faults.
On the note of Phil's writing, have you seen his community tab? I'm vehemently against Twitter and always have been, so I can't comment on that, but his community tab is literally just scheduled shitposting. It's almost like he has a template where he just switches around a few words and posts. But the typos give it away that he's genuinely just stuck in this routine of bad vocabulary and pretending like anyone gives a shit.
The majority of the videos are your new content from today, with clips from years and years ago spliced in everywhere to try to create a false narrative. They don't care about anything at this point but making money, and they will fabricate stuff just to keep their money rolling in.
I'm a psychologist. I study psychology. In theory, I can give counsel to folks if I open my private practice. This isn't to suck myself off, but rather to say that we in the business call this projection. I mean, who do we know in this story that is solely in this business for the money? I'll give you a hint. It ain't the detractors. There's no money to be made here, folks. Well, that's not true. There's probably some money. But again, I can't help but believe DSP wrote this comment just because who else would think he's still relevant enough to consider his persona a goldmine that just shits out money whenever they plaster his name on a video, except DSP himself. Also, who the fuck splices old DSP footage with new DSP just to defame him nowadays? I said this in the previous video, but this would be redundant work for detractors. It's really not necessary to go out of our way to defame DSP when you could just sit and watch him for a few minutes and he'll just bury himself. The only times I can think of modern detractors referencing old DSP is Dick Stroking Phil vlogs for his funny edits, maybe Super Crazy, because he actually makes videos about DSP lore, and well, perhaps Outsider for his This Is How You Don't Play and hilarious montages. Nowadays, you don't even need to take the clips out of context, not that you ever needed to, because again, DSP will just hang himself out to dry if you give him a few minutes of screen time, and this section is just more proof of it.
To go back to the side-scrollers interview again, they played the clip of DSP joking about child trafficking and commented on it. Where was the splice for that? We don't need to make DSP look bad with edits and AI voice or whatever. Phil does that himself. He was the one making jokes about look out, it's a black woman. He was the one getting needlessly urban whenever a chocolate-flavored individual was on the screen. He was the one always making jokes about putting his pig dick in virtual butts. These are all things that he's done and he's responsible for. This is the equivalent of someone committing a crime and then accusing the jury of making him look bad when they come back with a guilty verdict. This guy could benefit from looking in the mirror a bit. What makes this even worse is that he has a React channel where people make him look at his old content. Every time, it's peppered with excuses of I don't do this anymore and this wouldn't fly now or something to that effect. He's watching himself in the past and not understanding that he was simply a piece of shit. We exist because of who and what he is.
Let's continue. The original detractors were actually just a bunch of crazy and obsessed people who were fanboys of Kojima. You kept saying bad stuff about Hideo Kojima while playing Metal Gear Solid, and that made them get really mad. They're all long gone now and probably on heavy medication of some sort at this point. Again, this is a comment on my video. I'm not saying this. This is me reading a comment. Okay?
Ooh, careful now. We wouldn't want DarkSydePhil to creep around after being held under wraps for so long. This is just one of those small moments of gold dust we detractors live for. To see Phil's facade crumble ever so slightly and get a glimpse of the rotten person underneath. Of course, I'm talking about the little smug, stifled smile of his he cracked there when saying that the OG detractors are probably on medication of some sort. As in their actual wheelchairs, in case you need me to spell it out. Also, does anyone remember that little girl who Phil said was gonna be sold off in that one game? Adam from Side Scrollers remembers.
As a funny side note here, remember that girl in that VR game that Phil said he would pimp slap? Yeah, so it turns out Phil is kind enough to organize his videos into playlists. However, that video is missing from the playlist. You actually have to sift through his thousands of shitposts to find it. It's still on his channel, but he'll say he never said that. Fucking adorable.
And don't you just love it how he has to clarify that he's reading a comment, implying this isn't him saying these things? The funny part is that he chose to read this comment in his podcast. And funnier still is that we can see in his face what he's thinking when he reads these words. The old DSP shining through. And I'm sorry if I sound kind of like I'm rambling at this point, but this segment just hit me differently and I'm particularly quite livid writing this script, to be honest. I mean, do you remember those suggestion box segments where honest feedback gets dismissed because it's too long? That's kinda odd. I thought you didn't have time to read paragraphs of comments in the suggestion box, so why does this frankly gratuitous and self-masturbatory fan comment get a pass? I mean, it's rhetorical. We all know the answer. And again, this is giving Phil the benefit of the doubt and assuming it's an actual comment, which I personally believe it isn't and that he just wrote this himself, in crayon, possibly. If so, then he got a rise out of me and I was trolled and I feel awful. You got me, Phil. Fuck you.
Steel yourself, Lex Mechanic Wirch. Remember Admonitions Mechanicate 316. Heed not the words of the Xenos, lest they infect us with blasphemy. Sermon aside, it is very likely that Phil wrote this. Now, this may seem a bit tinfoil hatty, but stick with me on this. People are largely creatures of repetition, but they also have a certain fingerprint about them. For example, people have their own writing styles and speech patterns. As an engine seer, I can confidently say that you can identify a contributor to a codebase by the way they write code too. This comment is very much written in DSP style. Likewise, it's just an aggregation of things Phil has already said in the past. This is either an obvious troll, a LARPer, or Phil himself. I'll let you decide.
It's literally 90% money-based now. They just never really made a career out of it. It would have mostly died out if not for that. Duty and the other spam uploaders make thousands of dollars a month doing this kind of content. More than they ever would have done doing anything else because they're all untalented morons.
I'm just gonna slip into my psychologist hat here once again and interject with a question. Who do we know that refers to his detractors, notably using the term morons? What's more, who has made thousands of dollars doing the same shit for the past 16 years and has said time and again that he couldn't possibly do anything else because this is the best paying job he's ever had, and also that he's too old and no one would hire him because he literally doesn't know how to do anything else? Sounds like a lucky yet untalented moron to me, to be honest.
I'm going to preface this by saying I don't really watch Duty. I don't have anything against him, I'm sure he's a cool guy, but the type of content he puts out just isn't in my preferred style. Again, I wish him the best and big ups for fighting the good fight. Anyway, to add to this hypocrisy, even if what this anonymous DSP style individual said is true, Duty is automatically more marketable than Phil because he not only learned how to edit his videos and I presume has a work ethic revolving around consistent uploads, but also made connections within the community. This is the opposite of Phil and something that really bugs me. As Brother Wirtz just pointed out, Phil has been at this for 16 years. His career is legally old enough to drive a vehicle in America, and what has he done with it? Nothing. He used to edit videos, but they were nothing remarkable. He still doesn't understand OBS, being that he just recently found out there's a pause recording button and still gets other people to make his layouts. I mean, shit, just for doing these videos, I've already surpassed the professional quality of DSP, and that's sad. This is yet another case of Phil making his own coffin and refusing to accept that he has delay in it. I don't like Markiplier or any of those other morons, but they invested not only in their own careers, but also in themselves. Phil, he's still fat, sitting alone in a room, talking to nobody, begging for money, and going nowhere. Is this mean? I mean, I'm pretty sure it is, and I don't care.
They treat making content about you like some people upload clips of their family or of the movie Frozen. I don't get that. I guess what they're saying is like obsession. Like, I upload all the content about my family. Oh, I'm the biggest fan of Frozen. Well, I'm the biggest hater of DarkSydePhil. Monetize that shit. I guess that's what he's trying to say. Okay? Let's continue.
Yeah, bitch, you better chew that water. Speaking of things that bother me about Phil, it bothers me how he can read something and then rephrase it in his own words. This may be projection for me, but I feel like people do this internally or in their own heads. And you know what? That's fine. You need to parse and digest information in a way that's familiar to you. But it's insulting when you do it verbally on stream because, at least to me, it seems like you don't think your viewers are intelligent enough to understand fucking English. Regardless of that, absolutely no one aside from some crayon dust snorting dents like Fred Fucks would care about being the biggest Phil hater. Even then, someone like that wouldn't really fit into the community. Who even are we? We're just random people who see Phil for what he is. Manipulative, narcissistic, a liar, and so much more, and we have opinions about what he's doing and how he operates. We're just some fucking guy, but a YouTube channel. Also, on the topic of monetization, and this is Engineer Daikun speaking, if we ever get to the point that we're a big YouTube channel doing streams and taking tips and super chats and shit, if you ever send money to Engineer Daikun, I'm refunding that shit immediately. I don't want your goddamn money. Stop sending money to random people on the internet and use it to invest in yourself. I don't care if you want to support the content. Support it by showing up and commenting on it. And you know what? The same goes for Phil. He will undeniably go away if you stop giving him money. Stop supporting him and he'll have to go out and navigate the harsh realities of life just like the rest of us.
Most of the detractors are far more racist and sexist and anything else than anything you ever did. It's not valid hate.
So basically, in conclusion, both of you need to go to hell.
Okay, so there's two things that I want to talk about, and I'm sorry if it seems like I'm cutting him off a lot. First off, we're far more racist and sexist than Phil. That's yet to be demonstrated. I've been to a lot of detractor streams, and I've seen a lot of detractor videos in the last 8 years. The only thing that could be even close to being as bad as Phil is drunk Tevin rants. However, I just refer to that as drunk black man rage, which I can definitely relate to. Secondly, it's not valid hate. What in the absolute goddamn is valid hate? Do I need to go through committee to verify whether my disdain for you is genuine? Simply put, I don't like you because you're a piece of shit. I can go to your own videos and point out reasons why you're a piece of shit. No editing, no AI bullshit. Your own uploaded videos prove this. I mean, shit, we were in your chat for 30 minutes before you blew your top on us asking a simple question. This is why people don't like you.
Now, before I continue, I'm just gonna say something right now. Those people who claim that they hate me because of things that I say and do, the things they say and do are far more vile. You have no idea. Like, no exaggeration, and this is me from my understanding, they call people who are fans of me or supporters of me dense. Okay? Do you know what that means? Do you know where that comes from? They're basically saying that when you were a child, someone dropped you on your head and you have a malformed skull because of it, a dented head, and you have like brain damage. This is a common term they use in their community. They're making fun of brain damaged people, and like, that's fine. That's totally acceptable. Oh, but if Phil says that someone's a mouth drooler because they mash playing a fighting game, that's not acceptable. Correct? But they have a literal term they use in every piece of their content, and that's acceptable, saying people have brain damage. What?
I mean, the difference between the average detractor and DSP is that we don't really pull our claims out of our asses. In fact, most of the time we use DSP's clips and just respond to them raw. Some detractors might even get more fancy with their editing and whatnot, but most of the time it's just us dudes with a microphone listening to what DSP has to say and pointing out the frankly stupid shit, which is most of what comes out of his mouth. This just begs the question, what are these vile things that he claims detractors say? And this is rhetorical, again, because I know he just went and explained the dent thing, but is he really going to clutch his pearls about this when literal minutes ago he smirked when he read that part that said his old detractors are forgotten and probably on medication? And again, just in case you need me to reiterate this is implying that they are actual fucking wheelchairs. Just like this dent comment, so what's the point? And this is just classic DSP to get hung up on semantics whenever it suits him. It's not about what we mean when we say dent, it's not about what we're implying when we say the term. He goes on to explain the literal meaning of the term to again misrepresent detractors as these people who gratuitously mess with people just for the sake of it. I for one can definitely say it's not about poking fun at mental illness. Though to be fair, giving money to DSP to the point where you go bankrupt surely must classify as something you'd find at a DSM-5, but I digress. Also, shout out once again to Super Crazy here. His TCAP series has everything you'd ever want to know about some of the biggest DSP whales, including the ones that literally went bankrupt from, among other things, tipping DSP. Definitely go check it out if you haven't already. Nevertheless, to get back on track, and to be fair to DSP, I personally don't have an issue with him calling others mouth droolers, and I can probably say the same for the vast majority of detractors, because, like any thinking person, we know that he's not actually calling them mentally disabled. I mean, to someone who's been on the internet long enough, this should be fairly obvious. But this just begs yet another question. If the people who mash in fighting games are mouth droolers, then what do you call the person who always loses to the mouth droolers who only do pattern play? Riddle me this, Batman.
Oh boy, it's story time. Once upon a time, I was but a wee engine seer, barely big enough to wield a las pistol, much less carry an omniscient axe into battle. I said these things, I got pissed off calling the game a cheating bastard. I would call people mashers when they beat me. The difference is, I was less than 10, and DSP is literally in his 40s. He's not even pretending when he says this, he's being 100% serious. Back when I first discovered DSP, I thought he was like the average YouTube personality, putting on an act, a gimmick, if you will, for the camera and the audience. Then, the more I watched, especially shit like Act the Kang, I realized it was not an act. He really is like this. He's the 42-year-old man-child who never developed.
No, it's not only hypocritical, it's worse than what I do. Worse. But they're okay doing it because they're making fun of me. Get it?
Of you and your dent. Yes. Also, when you have to say you're bad but your detractors are totally worse, whose face are you really trying to save here? Because it ain't yours, especially because you're the one who pretends that you do nothing wrong and do everything correct. But I'm already tired of this bullshit fixation on semantics, and don't even get me started on this next bit where he's gonna get hung up on the term wheelchair, which DSP correctly states we also use to refer to his fans. Regardless, I'm just gonna fast forward to when he gets back on track. Thank me later.
Anyway, let's continue. They just want to pretend that their hate is valid so that it sounds valid. You could make yourself into a perfect angel in every way. They would still hate you. They would not miss a beat because this is now their job. Okay? As for their viewers, they find it funny to consume this stuff, and they have turned it into a daily routine, and the comments are all about money and not being good at games. It's mostly people who are jealous that you make money being a streamer, and they can't. Most of the restreamers literally are just failed streamers. They can only get any attention or make any money if they upload your content.
Yeah, imagine that. It's almost like DSP is always whining about money and he just happens to not be very good at games. Holy shit. Also, I can definitely imagine there's a degree of envy when it comes to streamers. I mean, not everyone can live off of streaming and much less strike it big by playing games on the internet. And as much as I would be envious of all the ninjas, Dr. Disrespects, and PewDiePies, I can honestly say that envy is definitely not what I feel when I look at DSP, despite him making 6 figures a year. Shit, I'm definitely not where I would like to be financially. But if my money came with DSP tier infamy attached, or with having to act like DSP does just to make money, then I'd rather take my current existence and walk, to be honest. And this isn't a grand statement about being humble, but more about how absolutely awful it must be just to be in Phil's shoes. Call it empathy, if you will.
As Lex Mechanic Wirch just pointed out before, this sounds like projection. Also, I mentioned this earlier, Phil definitely wrote this since these are things he said on stream before. Regardless, I'm gonna get a bit personal here. I make about as much as Phil does. I am, in real life, a senior software engineer. I am a full-stack developer, and right now I am writing backbone infrastructure for a company that did not give a shit about their stack for the last 20 years. I'm fixing things. Am I jealous of Phil? Hell no. As I pointed out before, Phil hasn't done anything with himself in the last 16 years. Meanwhile, in the last 10 years, I've vastly invested not only in my own career, but my own personal health. I've made connections, and I can pretty much go work wherever I want. I've become proficient at front-end tech like React. I've become very familiar with back-end tech like C# and Rust, and I can confidently navigate my way around any relational or document DB. Now, let me ask you, with all that said, Shoutout by the way, what reason do I have to be jealous of Phil when I can play RimWorld for half of my workday and still make as much as him when contributing infinitely more to society and not having to worry about YouTube ads? I know, this is really personal, but when he says shit like this, I take it personal. Also, this is not a flex, please don't take it like that. Please invest in yourself and don't take the limited time you have on this planet for granted. Basically, don't be Phil.
Also, just because I'm a petty bitch, I went ahead to Memology's DSP channel and compared it to his regular channel in terms of views. Guess which one has the most hits and traffic? I'll give you a hint. It's not the one that covers the pigroach's antics. And just for good measure, here's a screenshot of DSP's latest vids on his main channel. Let's all gather around the campfire and just poke fun at him, for a while at least.
They try to make their own content sometimes and they get single-digit views on it. If you make yourself super clean and super boring, they're just gonna paste in clips from your past and magnify tiny things to push a narrative, because that's their job at this point, and that's what makes it work. Being super clean and boring is not gonna stop them. It will just make your content boring for the people who like you and support it. This is why people say the meme words, because you said something 6 years or so ago, and that's something that's detractors still splice into their videos daily.
Turns out both tech priests on this channel are petty bitches. That comment about views is a direct jab at Tevin. Turns out I've been around here long enough to know some eldritch lore. People meme that back in the day, Tevin would do a Street Fighter stream and pull like 20 views. That's actually pretty accurate. Now, Tevin can turn on a stream and get thousands of viewers because he's become just that big. Now, I'm going to be honest here and say that I don't really watch any of Tevin's content or show up to his streams anymore. No hate or beef against the guy, I just kind of fell out of love, I guess. I wish him the best and all. However, not only does Tevin consistently donate to charity, he also promotes the community. You can see Tevin commenting on other detractor videos, you can hear him mention other streamers outside of the snortex, and you can find him hosting the most random people on his Twitch. Tevin is the reason I even know about the cardboard cowboy, and I still tell people about that shit. I don't care if Tevin is selling drugs or not, he's still giving back to the community. And yes, this was a reference to his awful analogy during that MLB playthrough. Also, isn't it Shawn Michaels that he made this because he said something 6 years ago comment when the vest was literally something from like 1,000 years ago? Fucking hilarious.
The thing these guys hate is any possibility of this gravy train that they're on ending. So if they see you do anything that they think might actually improve your public perception, they're going to try to counter it. Okay? If they thought that a documentary would come out that would actually see you in a positive light, and it might change how some people see you on the internet and actually attack the creators of like the detractor stuff, well, they're going to try to get you not to do that and even give you money to try to convince you not to do it.
You know what we call people who act as detractors but give DSP money? LARPers. I'm sure you don't need me to explain what the term means. And no, we don't want them here. No one who gives DSP money, even ironically, is welcome in the community. Fuck your ops and fuck your codes. Stay in DSP's chat where you belong, you fucking heretic scum.
From Quaestos Mechanical 521. From the mouths of heretics he meant naught but foul vapors. Cut out the tongue and be clean.
But where is this gravy train you speak of, DSP? Why is it always the case when we analyze and comment on DSP's takes that he always talks out of his ass and never actually produces any evidence? Why is it that when we talk about DSP, we always produce his own words as our arguments to illustrate our points? Hell, even when it comes to the money, we often consult Piece of Pieces tips trackers, which to this day keeps a faithful registry of all the tips DSP has gotten on stream from as early as April 2021 till today. We'll be leaving the links in the comments if you want to check for yourself. DSP would never go attack the detractors publicly. He's too much of a coward. And regarding positive interviews, that one interview with the Quartering wasn't exactly bad for DSP, mainly because it was the tamest shit ever, with Jeremy just going along with whatever DSP said and not really confronting him on the most controversial topics. Where were these scary trolls then that they didn't stop this fucking farce from happening? Gee, it's almost like you're talking out of your ass once again, Philip.
This is a comment I've left on DSP's videos before and a sentiment that a lot of us can most likely relate to. It would be very easy for DSP to disprove the overwhelming majority of claims made against him. WWE Champions? A literal screenshot would disprove that, but he hasn't produced any, even when Craig extended an olive branch and elected to be his representative on the matter. Also, this isn't to say that everyone should be producing proof for literally any claim made against them, but we have far more evidence to support the claim than dismiss it. It must be sad to be DSP, or the daycare monkey he decided to marry.
These people are just protecting their careers at this point. They even copyright strike each other, and they have their own turf wars, and then they blame you for it because they try to get the competition out of the picture because of their money. They're just a bunch of parasites, clawing at each other to try to take money from you.
And that slight correction at the end there is why I don't think this is an actual comment, but something written by DSP. And I know I might be grasping at straws here, but DSP is the only one who, throughout his history, has portrayed restreaming style detractors as people who are literally committing felonies and stealing his money. DSP has gone on to say that the money they make from restreaming should be rightfully his, and that the only reason he doesn't get it is because he's a small-time guy and has no money to sue them.
DSP has no money to sue anybody but can hire a lawyer for his make-believe identity theft crisis and also hire a fucking CPA to do his taxes for him. Make that make sense.
If DSP had left it like that and said that they make money off of him instead of taking it from him, I would have let it slide and probably wouldn't have commented on this section. But as matters stand right now, I don't know, man, my bullshit meter's just off the charts here. And I know I just said that we as detractors try to substantiate our claims, but sometimes you just know, you know? I encourage DSP to prove me wrong by posting some sort of proof that this is an actual comment and not something he just wrote up for this segment. Though I know he won't even watch this video, so go figure.
I'd also like evidence of this turf war shit. Like I said, I've been around since 2016 and have never witnessed this shit going on. As far as I see it, and how I've always seen it, we're just a bunch of random fucking schmucks pointing out the bullshit in what DSP says. Who the fuck is here for the money? DSP is not popular and only ever had popularity by means of scarcity.
They're like hot dog sellers clamoring around a stadium. You have no idea. I'm continuing. This is all one comment. You have no idea how sad the detractor community actually is. You think it's legit and has some foundation to it. No, it's actually just really stupid. If you were a woman, none of this would have happened. It would have ended long ago because it's unacceptable in the current climate to do this to a woman. However, because you're a guy, YouTube allows this to happen.
I'm pretty sure thoughts like Alinity, Amaranth, Pokimane, and others have always had a large following of detractors alongside their hordes of simps. And as public figures, this is a reality they have to deal with. Whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant here. This is just something that happens as people who make their living through their personas on the internet. As far as I know, people like It's a Gundam have made shit ton of content throughout the years criticizing these women and their ways, and he's still around. He still does it to this day. What an absolute mad lad. Shout out to the Big Daddy. Also, this just comes off as a thinly veiled sexist comment all around. And again, I can totally see this being written by Phil since he's also been notorious for in his past, strongly criticizing the success of titty streamers and other types of thoughts on Twitch who made their careers on the platform just by virtue of their looks. And this isn't to shame them at all, that'll be a topic for another day, but I can totally see DSP still being salty over this to this day, despite the fact that, again, this man makes 6 figures a year. However, imagine all the pulls he could afford if he had Pokemon's budget.
Agreed. And on the topic of gender, no, we would not let it slide. Whether you are a vaginally equipped individual or not, being a piece of shit is still being a piece of shit. Pokimane has a lot of shit takes and does a lot of ridiculous shit. The only reason we're not making videos on her is because neither one of us is actually invested in anything she does. If we were to actually follow her and keep up to date on her bullshit, you can guarantee we'd be making videos about her. The Sniper Wolf shit that happened pretty recently, hell yeah, that's a big red flag, and in my opinion, she should be arrested for what she did. This is a hot topic in society, so I'll just say here, your sexuality, your genitalia, whatever else are irrelevant when you're just a bad person. Each person should be held to the merits of their actions. I'm holding DSP to his, and his genitalia is not my concern. Much like his wife.
If it were some way that you could get in touch with YouTube and get them to actually look into, ban, and demonetize this as bullying content, which it all is, by the way. I know you'll choose to ignore it, but most of it is totally against YouTube's terms of service. It would all end. The hard part is making them do this because you are a man and there is no real PR hit for it. If they allowed this to happen to a woman, YouTube would look bad. But because I'm a guy, they allow it to happen and even promote it and let it be monetized.
Is that why all the videos mocking thoughts like Sniper Wolf are getting demonetized left and right? Is that why videos mocking Emma Chamberlain way back when were also demonetized? What about the videos making fun of Danielle Cohn? What about that Cash Me Outside chick? What about the ones who mock our own resident Cro-Magnon girl, Woe Vicky, who you have to have a PhD in xenolinguistics just to understand the words that come out of her mouth? What about Trisha Paytas, whose biggest calls to fame at the time were recording videos eating and then on her kitchen floor crying? Are the people who shat on her banned and demonetized too? These are women we're talking about, right? And people who clowned on these girls were a dime a dozen then. At least back in the day when they were still relevant and in the limelight of the god-awful YouTube trending page. I seem to remember people like Pyro Cynical, Cody Ko, Noel Miller, and other similar male creators covering these thoughts at the time. And at least in the case of Niall, he's still around and creating content and living off of his YouTube and Twitch career. It's just grating to me to hear this comment coming from a fan, because if it actually is from a fan, it just sounds exactly like DSP, as someone so out of touch with reality, despite their claims being easily disproved with just a simple Google search. Go figure.
My brother in the Omnisaya, are you okay? Remember Cathalamorian's 45-7. Above bullets, above blades, care for your soul above all. Speaking of terms of service, I do believe calling your fans faggots is against terms of service. I do believe saying I'd pimp slap the shit out of that kid when referring to another human being is also against terms of service. I do believe saying the world would be better off without you is also against terms of service. I could keep going, but that's hardly necessary. I do report Phil for the things he says, and it's not because I don't like him, it's because I think we should be building a good community. Harassing your fans to the degree that Phil does is not conducive to a healthy community. This is not a call to arms, and I do not condone misuse of the report feature, but if you find something bad, even in our videos, call it out. As it says in Aphorisms 97, if it's worth doing to completion.
Okay? This is why this Mike Klum documentary has set them a lot. It had the potential to get what is going on noticed by the people at YouTube or maybe outside the current ecosystem, and your detractors definitely do not want that.
I can't think of a single detractor who wouldn't want the Mike Klum documentary to come out. Mostly because even if it turned out to be utter shit, it would have been more material to comment on. And even if it didn't cover some of DSP's current arcs and drama, odds are that it would have covered elements from his past and also included interviews with family, detractors, and fans, just to get interesting perspectives. Because if Mike Klum is anything, at least judging from his Boogie documentary, he would definitely be methodical and thorough.
The Mike Klum documentary was a means of getting insight into things we couldn't possibly get insight into. Mike would have legit interviewed DSP's parents. I would love to see their opinion on what's become of their son. Are they complacent? Do they care at all? Are they ashamed? I would be if DSP was my child. I would be hiring a lawyer to argue the ethics of a 42-year-old abortion.
That's the comment. up.
This has been far more than I can take, to be honest. It's a miracle I made it this far without imploding, so I'm just gonna cut him off here.
I'm gonna let our fellow tech priest cool off a bit. As always, press buttons, leave comments, hope you enjoyed the video, and try not to stress too much over DSP's bullshit. To send you off with a farewell, heed the words of Fabricator General Heuristicus VII. An opportunity wasted is a sin preserved.